Hey, so I'm Alex, and this is my first and only Risky Behaviors podcast, and it's about gang membership. How is this a risky behavior? Well, stay tuned and you're going to find out. So, what exactly is the problem? Well, most gang members are actually adolescents between the ages of 14 and 19. So, what this basically means is like kids are joining gangs, but is this having an issue on their adult functioning? Studies have found that yes. People who are in gangs as adolescents usually don't graduate high school, they usually receive welfare, they're illegal, their income is illegal, and they have higher rates of self reported crime and victimization. So, you're probably sitting there going, okay, well, that's kind of an issue, but how many people is this affecting? 850,000 people are in a gang across the entire United States. Now you're probably going, okay, so who cares? Because out of 300 million people in the US, is that really an issue? That's like less than 1% of the population. Yeah, you're right. It's only 0.2% of the population. But what's happening is that these youth, these kids, are being affected into adulthood to where they're not actually functioning right. So, what has been the reason to solve this or the way to solve this? Great. The Gang Resistance Education and Training Program. So, what GREAT aims to do is have 13 lessons taught by local law enforcement officers that explain, how to have better attitudes and behaviors and how to interact with local law enforcement officers. There are three goals for GREAT. The first one is actually the main goal is to prevent youth from joining gangs. The next one is to prevent them from joining in violent and criminal activities. And then the third one is to have better relationships between youth and local law enforcement officers. I'll let you in on the secret. You all did DARE in high school, but that's actually a failed policy. The original GREAT in the 90s actually also was based off of DARE and it failed. So this new policy is what's been in place. But researchers have been asking, is this actually having an effect? Is GREAT actually having a great effect on people? Well, Espeson et al. Decided to do a study on that. They basically asked the question, I wonder if GREAT's working. And then they did it. So how did they do it? Well, first they gathered their own data over 4 years, and what they did is that they went to 7 different cities, got about 3,000 students to participate, and they put some of them in control groups and some of them in treatment groups where they actually went through the GREAT program. And what they call this is experimental longitudinal panel design. That's fancy talk from a randomized control trial. So some students had the treatment, some didn't. But then how did they measure whether or not this was actually having an effect, that the program was working? They had post-treatment questionnaires once a year for 4 years that they would send back to the students who went through the program and the students who didn't go through the program. And so what did they find? What were the results? Well, if you really want, you can lean in and you can try to find, where the asterisks are, like, that's statistically significant. Or you can just read what's on this page. So they found that out of 33 things that they were looking at and that the GREAT program tries to help students with, 10 of them have significant differences between the treatment group and the control group. So there's a whole list of 10 of them, but the most important one is that actually gang membership was a significant difference. You were less likely to join a gang if you received the GREAT program, which is one of its main goals. They also found that risk factors associated with joining a gang were less pronounced in the treatment group than in the control group. So you're sitting here like, oh, okay, so like GREAT's working. And yeah, it is. But there's always more that can be done that we need to think about. So first, yes, it is playing a significant role, statistically significant, in preventing youth from joining gangs. It's also helping those students who get the program not have those adult functioning issues we talked about earlier. So that's important. That's something that we really need to harp on when trying to promote this program to schools so that they can make sure that their youth are getting the information they need to prevent them from having, gang membership or gang involvement be something part of their future. But what about the rest of all of those things that we talked about? Only 10 things were statistically significant. That means that there were 23 that weren't. So I think what needs to happen is the creators are great. Need to first make sure they really utilize those 10 that are working and make sure that they keep working. You don't want to ignore the things that are working, even though gang involvement is their number one and it is working. So that's good. But they also need to focus on what's not working. Why isn't it working? Because those are still risk factors. Those things can still affect whether or not a student joins a gang or doesn't. So with all of that being said, and we are at the end of our time, but if you have any questions, if I went through the PowerPoint really fast, or you really just want to read over it, here's my email. Email me and I can answer any questions you have or email you the presentation so it's a lot easier to read. It's been fun, y'all. Good luck on your finals, and I'll see you at our test day.